In the name of Allah, the entirely merciful, the especially merciful.
إنا أعطيناك الكوثر.
Indeed, we have granted you, O Muhammad, Al-Kawthar.
فصل لربك وانحر.
So pray to your Lord and sacrifice to Him alone.
إن شانئك هو الأبتر.
Indeed, your enemy is the one cut off.
Jazakallah. Before we start our inaugural session, I would like to present today's webinar's agenda. Ambassador Ali Sarwar Naqvi, Executive Director, Center for International Strategic Studies, Islamabad, will give his opening remarks, followed by each speaker sharing their thoughts on a variety of issues falling under the theme of the webinar. Later, we are going to have a brief session for discussion. In today's program, we are pleased and honored to have Mr. Muhammad Naeem, Chairman, Pakistan Atomic Energy Commission, with us as a chief guest. Now, I would like to request Ambassador Ali Sarwar Naqvi, Executive Director of CISS, for his opening remarks. Ambassador Naqvi, in a long diplomatic career of 36 years, served in various diplomatic and ambassadorial assignments, including the United Nations, both in New York and Vienna, and in various capitals, including Washington, D.C., London, Paris, and Brussels. Ambassador Naqvi was appointed Member Chairman's Advisory Council in the Pakistan Atomic Energy Commission after his retirement from Foreign Service, where he functioned as advisor to the Chairman PAEC on International Affairs. Ambassador Naqvi is the founding Executive Director of Center for International Strategic Studies, which was established in 2010. Ambassador Naqvi, you have the mic, sir.
Thank you, Tuba. Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Assalamu alaikum. And a very good afternoon to all the participants, particularly the speakers and distinguished guests. I welcome all the participants and the speakers and our distinguished chief guest to this webinar, Mr. Muhammad Naeem, the chairman of the Pakistan Atomic Energy Commission. I am also thankful to all the respected speakers, Mr. Parvez Bhatt, Dr. Ansar Parvez, and Dr. Masood Iqbal, who are outstanding professional experts and will be sharing their valuable insights on the various aspects of Pakistan's nuclear power program in today's webinar. Not the least, we greatly appreciate the participants who are invited and who will take part in the interactive session after the presentations by the worthy speakers. Ladies and gentlemen, Pakistan is one of the earliest users of nuclear power in the developing world and has an enduring commitment to harnessing the peaceful uses of atomic energy as manifest over the past 6 decades. During this time, Pakistan has successfully demonstrated the application of nuclear energy and technology and pursued research and development in many scientific areas, including agricultural production, energy generation, food security, medical facilities, and industrial uses. These developments are the result of remarkable contributions of our scientists and engineers at PAEC. This webinar is being conducted to mark the decommissioning of Kanu 1, the first nuclear power plant that we had established after 50 years long service to the nation, and to discuss the role of peaceful nuclear technology in Pakistan over this period in socio-economic development and pursuing sustainable development goals, as well as addressing our energy needs. In 1972, Pakistan's first commercial nuclear power plant, Kanoop, was commissioned with the installed capacity of 137 megawatts under the economic and technical assistance of Canada. I am happy to have the participation of Mr. Parvez Bhatt, former chairman PAC, who was involved with the construction and commissioning of Kanoop in its earliest stages. He will narrate the story in his presentation, I presume. Since then, Pakistan has consistently sought to develop its nuclear power program through international cooperation and under IAEA safeguards. However, Pakistan's peaceful nuclear energy program has been targeted for sanctions by Western supplier states, primarily after India diverted nuclear fuel from Candu reactor and conducted its first atomic explosion in 1974. This challenge posed to Pakistan's nascent nuclear power program became a blessing in disguise when the scientists and engineers of PAC were able to produce indigenous nuclear fuel and spare parts within a few years of Canada's cutoff of all supplies to Kanoop and other related assistance, which happened in 1976. The remarkable extension of the operational lifespan of Kanoop beyond its initial design life is an attestation to Pakistan's impressive record of safety and security in operating nuclear power plants. The decommissioning of Kanoop is taking place after the recent inauguration of K2 and the forthcoming commissioning of K3, and thus marks a progressive advancement in the nuclear power field. Moreover, K2 and K3 are also manifestations of energy cooperation between Pakistan and China that has now stood the test of time for the last 30 years. Ladies and gentlemen, the breakthrough for Pakistan's nuclear power program, that of overcoming an international embargo for the supply of nuclear power plants to Pakistan, came in September 1986, when China and Pakistan concluded a comprehensive civil nuclear cooperation agreement under IAEA safeguards. Here I want to make a personal disclosure, of which I have written in an op-ed article some years ago, that the Chinese ambassador in Vienna in 2004 told me that when China became a member of the Nuclear Suppliers Group, it conveyed to the group that it would fulfill its commitment to Pakistan in the 1986 agreement, irrespective of the subsequent NSG regulations that it was now adopting. This point is often mentioned, that the Chinese could or could not have grandfathered the 1986 agreement. But in actual fact, China made a clear exception to the NSG regulations that it was going to accept in regard to the 1986 agreement. So there was no ambiguity about it, and there was no attempt on the part of China to undermine the NSG. Now, the 1986 agreement has proven to be a great example of our bilateral cooperation, as it has also paved the way for the installation of 5 nuclear power plants at Chashma. Not only has this cooperation contributed to Pakistan's pursuance of its socio-economic uplift by sustainably increasing the overall share of nuclear power in the country's energy mix to achieve its target, directed towards achieving or aimed at achieving its target of 8,800 megawatts of nuclear power by 2030, and eventually 40,000 megawatts, inshallah, by the year 2050. And it has also made Pakistan the biggest market for Chinese nuclear power plants. Nuclear power offers a cost-effective, greater capacity factor, and environmentally safe source of energy to mitigate power shortage. Keeping this in mind, Pakistan's nuclear power program is the most important element of its overall strategy of harnessing the peaceful uses of atomic energy for societal benefit and economic progress of the country and towards the attainment of sustainable development goals. Ladies and gentlemen, I have outlined for you the range and the scope of Pakistan's nuclear power program, with the object that these remarks will provide a backdrop to our discussion today. I look forward to the worthy speakers' informative perspectives on these very important topics. I wish all the participants a productive and fruitful session. And I will stop here now, and I thank you for your attention.
Thank you, Sir Naqvi. Now I would like to invite Chairman PAEC, Mr. Muhammad Naeem, to deliver his keynote address. Mr. Muhammad Naeem is currently serving as Chairman Pakistan Atomic Energy Commission since 2015. He did his MSc in Chemistry from Punjab University and joined Atomic Energy Minerals Centers in 1972. He also worked in DG Khan on different projects of national importance for 16 years. During his chairmanship, he has focused on creating high-tech R&D environment in the Commission. He has been representing Pakistan as governor for 4 years in the IAEA Board of Governors. In view of his par excellence performance in chemistry and nuclear fuel cycle, he was conferred with Sitara Imtiaz in 2005 and Hilal Imtiaz in 2013 of the Government of Pakistan. Sir Naeem, you have the floor, sir.
Thank you, Mr. Ba. Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. Respectable Ambassador Alisar Naqvi Sahab, Chairman Parvez Bhatt Sahab, Chairman Ansar Pervez Sahab, participants and guests, Assalamu alaikum and a very good afternoon. I'm grateful to Ambassador Alisar Naqvi for his invitation for this webinar. In fact, I'm grateful for celebrating this 50 years of nuclear power of Pakistan, which he is doing. And it's a great work. I think I appreciate that. Coincidentally, this year is very important for us because this year we have completed our 65 years of our journey in the field of application of nuclear technology for the socio-economic development of Pakistan. We started our journey in 1955, and then we started with the medical centers, with our agriculture center, with the R&D facilities, and of course, there was in 65 is a very important year because we had that year the contract for our this canop. That was, precisely speaking, that was 24th of May, 65, when the contract was made with the Canadian General Engineering and PAEC. And that year, it was coincidentally important year because the first fission in Pakistan was conducted in that year at our Power 1 reactor of Pinstek. Because in 1965, mid of that, we had we achieved the criticality of our research reactor, from where we have produced a lot of radioisotopes. We have trained our manpower, and we have been. It had been worked for a lot of works. This Power 1. So that was a very important year for us, and this year also is very important, because we are celebrating 50 years of our nuclear power program, because the 50-year, this is the anniversary of CANOP. We have the inauguration of K2 took place on 21st of May by Prime Minister of Pakistan this year. It is very important. And as I told you earlier, that 65 years of PAC, a meritorious service, we have completed and we are celebrating this year. We wanted to have some celebration, but on account of the COVID pandemic, we could not realize that program. But anyway, thanks very much for doing this. The CANAP it had the criticality achieved, and it was connected to the grid on 1st of August of 1971. But the commercial inauguration was celebrated, formal inauguration was done by then Prime Minister on 1st of December 1972. So that was the history of that. And at that time, this is amazing that after just the start of our journey, after 13 years of that, we started our first reactor. It's great, something great. And we were the 15th nation in the world who had this opportunity to have the nuclear power plant in the country. And at that time, even Korea and China was not in the field when we started operating our own CANAP in Karachi. Of course, Mr. Parvez Bhatt is sitting there, and I think he will be having a lot of discussion on that, and he will say good words on that. As Ambassador has told us that in 74, when Buddha smiled on the other side of the fence, the embargoes were there on Pakistan as well, and the CANAP was the main, I think, the focus at that time, because they said, okay, you sign the NPT, otherwise you will be denying all the technical assistance, the fuel, and the spares. And I think this was an opportunity in disguise, because Pakistan started the journey of indigenization that time. And knowing something about the fuel, I think that was not small challenge for Pakistanis at that time, because we had to go for the exploration of uranium. We had to go for extensive that mining, then processing, production of the yellow cake, then refining and bringing it to the nuclear level, achieving that, and then making that UO2, which was centerable, and to prepare the pellets, which was to be fed to the as fuel. So, and at the same time, there was another challenge along with the uranium, because the zircaloy 4, which is the cladding material for that fuel, was a very big challenge. And because we had to go for that, and there was denial from the international markets, so we started from zircon sand, and we had to master all that metallurgy, right from zircon sand up to this zirconium sponge, making the zircaloy 4 the alloys, which was nuclear grade, of course, controlling all the impurities, and then to make from those ingots the seamless tubes, which were produced at our STP, which was thanks to WhatsApp, who had a loud contribution for those facilities which was developed. So, and then the fuel fabrication was there, and it will be an honor for Pakistan and for PAC that since we started our feeding of our these bundles to the CANAP, not a single bundle had a failure in the reactor. That, I think, is a big achievement. That shows our seriousness in the quality control at all levels. And I think that was the great work by all the teams which were there. And then the other challenge was the spares. I think, again, I will say that Parvez Bhatt will be telling us more on that, because then the design and development cells were opened, and then the state-of-the-art manufacturing facilities were raised, which worked a lot, not only for CANAP, but for the other nuclear program of Pakistan, which was very useful, I think. And that, I say, that the fruit of the industrialization, the road on which we started due to the embargoes on our canal, that was a great opportunity. Then I think the third thing was the training of the manpower. At that time, so with the reactor of canal of Pinstech, which is the Power 1, we have a small reactor school, which ultimately was converted to a center for nuclear studies. And ultimately, alhamdulillah, it, after having gone through all the revolutionary stages, it became a full-fledged university. And our chairman, Ansar, has a lot of contribution in that. And then the KINPO and the CISS. The KINPO at that time was very important to train our manpower, the engineers, scientists, and of course our technicians, so that they can take the responsibility for the safe operation of our reactors. So I think that was the three things was developed, and which was a great work of our visionary leadership at that time. And of course, after that, we had a lot of work in that. I will not go into detail for the agriculture and the human health and other contributions which PAC has made, which is great. But because today we are talking of the power, so I will restrict myself to nuclear power. Then, as Ambassador Naqvi has told us, that 1986 contract of PAC and Chinese friends was there. So when they had developed in 1991, they had the 300 megawatt Chinsha, and when they had done that all, they offered that, okay, we can make it for you, Pakistanis, and we accepted that. And they started the journey for our Chashma series, Chashma 1, 2, 3, and 4. And alhamdulillah, the 4 reactors which are at Chashma, they have worked wonderfully. If we say the capacity factor, the availability factor, it is in more than 90%. And that is a record in the country, that no other power plant has attained that availability factor and the capacity factor. I think that is on account of the very good work by our engineers, scientists, technicians in the power sector. They have done a great work. And of course, the supporting from all of our facilities, which are at different places. So after that, I think the third, the Gen 2, after these are the Gen 2 reactors, and then came the Gen 3s. And then we have when they have successfully designed and developed ACP 1000 series, the Chinese, then we went into another contract for 2 reactors, K2 and K3, 1100 megawatt each. And alhamdulillah, on 21st of May, as I've mentioned earlier, Prime Minister of Pakistan has already inaugurated that. And by the end of this year or early next year, we'll be connecting K3, inshallah, by the national grid. And will the formal inauguration after 4 months about that, it will be carried out. So, this K2, since its inauguration, it's alhamdulillah working safely, nicely at 1110 megawatt power. I think we should understand that people have certain arguments for the nuclear power. I think my friends will be putting more of light on that. We are not the costly one, we are the cheap. You just see one index is that at what rate we are giving the electricity to the grid. At our Chashma one, it is about 6.7, 6.8 rupees per unit, which is very good rate. And if we go for the others, these will become after the payment of our loans of the same range. K2 at the moment is 12 rupees, or it is 14 rupees at the moment, which is again competitive. But if we go for the levelized for its lifetime, you see in the last time of this reactor, we have calculated it will be around 2 rupees per unit. When it has completed about 40 years, then we will be having that. And the life of that reactor is about 60 years. I think, so it's a cheap, of course, the capital cost is there, but the component of the fuel in that, the cost of the unit, it's very less compared to the other sources of power. So one very important thing, we are cleaner. We are having a lot of problem. Pakistan, as per the CRI of 2020, is the 5th most nation to be hit by the climate change. And we have to control with the, of course, with the international, because it's not only Pakistan, everybody has to control the emission of the greenhouse gases. And as I've told earlier as well, if the 1,000 megawatt plant is there on our oil, fossil fuel, or the gases, the emission annually for carbon dioxide is around 5 million tons per year. And we have zero emission. And we should be very conscious of this. We are signatory of the Paris Convention, and we should abide by that the temperature of the globe should not increase by 2%. So that's very important. I think we should give a weight to this. And then I've said it's a cleaner, it's a cheaper, and then it's a base load. We should understand that whenever you have the waters in our reservoirs, you have a couple of months, then they say that if the dead level is there. So we cannot depend on the on our hydro only or on our other. We have already seen it's very costly, the import of the oils, and then the availability of the fuel. Just with the 1 or 2 the C-130 load can work for about 3 years. And you see to operate a plant which is on gas or others, you need ship loads. If it's the coal, you have the train loads to supply the fuel of that. That is a very important factor. We should understand that. So we are cheaper, we are cleaner, and I think we are base load, and we are available 24/7. And as I've told, the availability factor and the capacity factor, we have already demonstrated. We are grateful to the government of Pakistan, for SPD, and other departments for the support for the establishing of our nuclear power plants. And we are grateful to PNRA for the very good, they are the authorities. They have very strong watch on us, they keep, and we are running our reactors very safely. We are grateful to IAE and WANO for their cooperation to run these plants safely. So I think I have taken much of time. So I'm thankful again to all the participants, to Naqvi Saab, to Bhatt Saab, to Ansar Saab, and to all the participants and the guests. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Sir Naeem, for your speech. Now I would like to invite Dr. Masood Iqbal, Member Science, PAEC, to speak on nuclear power and corporate social responsibilities. Dr. Masood Iqbal is currently serving as Member Science at PAEC. He got his PhD in nuclear engineering from University of Cambridge. He has published more than 50 international papers on the subject. He served PAEC in various capacities for more than 3 decades in field of condensed matter physics and nuclear engineering. As Member Science, he is responsible for the research and development institutions, atomic energy cancer hospitals, and agriculture sectors of PAEC. He is spearheading open as well as classified projects of PAEC. Dr. Iqbal, you have the floor, sir.
Thank you very much. Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. Honorable Ambassador Ali Sarwat Naqvi Saab, Mr. Muhammad Naeem, Chairman Pakistan Atomic Energy Commission, Mr. Pervez Bhatt, ex-Chairman Pakistan Atomic Energy Commission, Dr. Ansar Pervez, ex-Pakistan Chairman Pakistan Atomic Energy Commission, participants, ladies and gentlemen, very good afternoon. Much of the discussions on nuclear power plants will be discussed by our senior ex-chairmans, Mr. Pervez Bhatt and Dr. Ansar Pervez, I will give an overview that Pakistan Atomic Energy, being the owner of the nuclear powers in Pakistan, understand the social responsibilities, what we have to do for nation and our nation peoples. Please, you have uploaded, yes. Next.
Yeah. Okay. Sure. Next picture again. Yeah.
Next. This is a general overview of the nuclear power plants in Pakistan. K1, which is recently now decommissioned, and the C1, C2, C3, and C4 are operating in a very good capacity and availability factor. K2 recently inaugurated and linked with the national grid. Next, please. These two are the main locations of nuclear power plants, Chashma and Karachi, the sole utility responsible for production of electricity using nuclear technology in Pakistan. Next. So the corporate social responsibility, PAC is social responsible organization, volunteer contribution towards socio-economic uplift of community living around the sites, socio-economic development of communities under social welfare program for years. In 2020, corporate safety social responsibility policy of PAC has been prepared and approved, and CSR management system for the effective implementation of CSR activities. The communities we undertake the environment, education, and health. Next. The environment in the sense, the management of environmental impacts of the operations on local community. The adverse impacts are taken care of in an inherent way during design, installation, and operation. Screening process, an integral part of the environmental impact assessment, EIA, for all nuclear power plants. The environmental monitoring program, we have air quality and noise level within the limits of by Pakistan environmental quality standards follow. Biological material testing, groundwater sampling taken, river Indus water sampling taken, and approved as a safe for human health by European Union standards. These, sorry, back.
Next.
Next, reverse back pe jayega. Yes, next. So this is what we are doing for our the peoples who are living around the nuclear power plants, and all these standards have to be taken care. Next. Next is the environmental protection, that is Sar Sabzo Shada, Pakistan. We have our chairman Vardi have started this program for Pakistan in the wherever we have our centers, and we have a total about 14,562 the power plants in our different centers, and different years in 2018, 2019, and 2020. And these trees include ornamental, fruit trees, and medicinal trees. Next. So Pakistan Atomic Energy Commission also provides the facilities to the nearby nuclear power plants about mobile dispensaries and medical coverage in Karachi and Chashma, and essential medical checkup and medicines to local peoples. 4 PCR testing facilities have been added in PAC hospitals for COVID-19 testing. NIPG at Faisalabad is providing free screening for genetic and metabolic diseases and for beta thalassemia patients. Yearly about 0.3 million is also spent on free medical camps in Balochistan. Care for poor people and cancer awareness, we have 18 nuclear PAC medical centers and 19th is going to be near inaugurated, maybe in the next month. And about the 80% of the total cancer patients are being treated at our centers. And cancer awareness program with mobile screening units for early detection of cancer in remote areas are also deployed. And all these facilities are very easily available for the poor patients in all 80 cancer centers. Next. Also, supply of potable water, especially in Karachi, water distribution in 11 nearby boats, potable water bowsers being provided to above villages on weekly basis. Each bowser contains 4,800 US gallon of water. Total quantity supplies to nearby villages is 19,200 gallons on weekly basis. Apart from that, in education centers, we also support, like in Miyawali, PAC Foundation Girls Higher Secondary School, about 1,000 students are being benefited from this. Madrasa Tul Banat, Madrasa Aisha Sadiqa Tul Banat, Madrasa Ding Bridge, Industrial Home, Hunarga, Roshni Schools 100, and equal opportunity for admission of local students in all PAC education institutions in all classes. Student local about 830 and total 4,450. 244 students are enrolled in 4 schools in Balochistan also. Sport to education centers, PAC has provided furnitures and electric water coolers for all classes rooms to government girls high schools, Kundia. We have managed through the contractor to provide bags, textbooks, and stationery to all students in nearest schools of Chashma sites. Research students, including PhD, MPhil, MSc, supervised by scientists of National Institutes for NIAB, Faisalabad, free of cost for last 10 years. Next. So as far as employment is concerned, we also consider the local people for the employment, like in Chashma, non-skilled people, 78%, semi-skilled person, 42%, and local Miyawali employees in refueling outage RFOs, 91%. Locals are being also employed at K2 and K3 sites, and in mining projects, 51% we are employed the local persons. Yearly cost on employed is in Balochistan about 3.5 million. Skill development centers at Nilot, Islamabad, Chashma, DG Khan, Faisalabad, and Karachi. We have Hunarga centers and a number of trained female members in year 17 to 18, 265, and 18 to 19, 433. Relief for victims of COVID-19. When this pandemic come into, the PAC part to play a very good role in this ration distribution during COVID-19 among needy persons in nearby villages. Infrastructures like in Karachi, from Machli Goat to Canop, about 16 million PAC spent for road structure construction, which you can see the condition of the road before and after. Next, please. And we also provide some of the energy and electricity in this sense of solar tube wells, solar package to houses, about 13 million yearly cost on solar tube wells, and solar package for houses is 13 million. Installation of biogeysers in remote hilly areas of Malakand and Hazara divisions having no gas and electricity facilities from NIFA. This is centered in our Peshawar. One of the big achievement and the services which PAC is providing is PAC has developed technology to reclaim saline lands. Nuclear Institute, NIAB, Faisalabad is playing an effective role in profitable use of saline lands. You can see here, this is the before the technology approved, and after you can see what the kind of trees are there, and the sheep and other about 5,063 acres area is developed in Shorecourt and Lodra. Our scientists also organize Farmers' Day to guide them on site solutions regarding crop productions. Next. Thank you very much. This is all about what the PAC is doing for the nearby people of the nuclear power plants, and many other things also. PAC, like Chairman PAC Naeem Saab has told, that PAC is continuously struggling for the development of socio-economic of the Pakistan nation. Thank you very much.
Thank you for the informative presentation, Dr. Iqbal. Next, Dr. Ansar Parvez, former Chairman PAC, will be sharing his thoughts with us on Pakistan's nuclear power generation, progress, and prospects. Dr. Ansar Parvez did his
Dr. Ansar Parvez. Dr. Ansar Parvez.
Okay, sir. Sorry about that. Dr. Ansar Parvez did his master's in physics and nuclear technology from Pakistan and his PhD in nuclear engineering and science from Rensselaer Polytechnic Institute, USA. He served Pakistan Atomic Energy Commission in various capacities for more than 4 decades before retiring as its chairman in 2015. He has also taught at Purdue University, USA, and has been the chairman of the Board of Governors of International Atomic Energy Agency. Currently, he is advisor, nuclear power to the National Command Authority and chairman, Board of Governors, National Center for Physics. Dr. Parvez, you have the floor, sir.
Hello, can you hear me now?
Yeah.
Okay. Thank you very much. So thank you, Tuba, and thank you, Ambassador Saab, for giving me this opportunity to talk. Or as a matter of fact, the brief overview that you gave, and then the presentation that Chairman PAC, Mr. Mohammad Naeem gave, has quite comprehensively covered most of the things which I was going to say, and perhaps also same for Batsab. But anyway, I'll try to add this thing a little bit to this. And I think at this time, I must also facilitate member science, Dr. Masood Iqbal, because he has made a very excellent presentation on corporate social responsibility and a number of different ways in which Atomic Energy Commission is affecting the life of the common man. And this is an aspect, I think, which has never been projected to this extent before. So I think this is a good thing to start with. Coming back to nuclear program, as I said, there cannot be anything new that I'm going to say. लेकिन बात ये कि अगर महबूब एक ही है तो आप उसको मतलब खूबियां बयान करें तो repetition तो होगी. So let's go on to sharing the screen if I can do it. तो क्या आप देख सकते हैं screen? Fine. Can you look at the screen or not?
Yes.
We can see the screen, sir.
Okay, thank you very much. Okay, so we are going to, as I have been asked, to talk about progress and prospects, and everything about nuclear in Pakistan would always start from Keynote. So I'm showing here a picture, and there are some dates here, which already have been mentioned by Chairman PAC. And I don't think that anyone in Pakistan interested in nuclear power in any way, or at least attending this seminar or listening to this seminar, wouldn't know about Keynote. The thing that I want to point out here is as to what exactly is the contribution of Keynote besides providing nuclear power, besides providing us self-reliance in developing its fuel in mining uranium, in doing the chemical processing of uranium, and in fabricating, as Chairman PSU also said, and in doing all the analysis that we had to do, and in making the spare parts and keep the plant running. So let me start from the outset. As a matter of fact, that when Keynote was built, that was year 1971. At that time, 137 megawatt of Keynote produced more than half of the electricity that CISS required at that time. And Keynote during its initial lifetime could not be operated at full power because it was too large a component. And now, 50 years down the line, when Keynote plant was shut down, it was such a small part of the whole system, maybe providing less than 2 to 3% of the total electricity. The reason I'm bringing it up here is that when a nuclear power plant is built, and because the lifetime of nuclear power plants like goes to 30, 40, 50 years, and this is Keynote, which has a design life of 30, and its life has been extended to 50 years. The current nuclear power plants have a life maybe something like 60 years and can easily be extended to 80 years. So when you are building a power plant, and if you do not have future in sight, then you cannot make the right decisions. The right decisions for building the nuclear power plants can only be made when you have long-term future in sight. If you look at the plant right now, they may look too large, they may look too many for the given conditions of energy, for the given conditions of infrastructure in the system, for the given conditions of industrial development. But 15 years, 20 years, 30 years down the line, these plants will become an integrated part of this thing. And at that time, if you have these plants, you will be better off. And if you didn't have this plant, then you will still have to rely on fossil fuels or maybe on fuels which contribute to this environmental pollution. The other important thing that Keynote has told us, the lessons that we have learned from it, is the steadfastness, the will and the determination. And as a matter of fact, there are a lot of people, some of them are even alive today, who tried to, for whom this Keynote was a passion. And as a matter of fact, one of them, I cannot really name them because it will be unfair if I left out any names, but one of them is Dr. Batsab is going to speak right after me. The passion that they had for it, they did not care for the difficulty that came their way. They did not care for the fact that the Canadians wouldn't, the vendors would not supply the fuel or any other system. And they also did not care if the plant was shut down maybe for an extended period of time. Maybe for months, sometimes it was shut down. And if you look at the capacity factor, it is 32%. Any power plant right now, as we all know, that Chashma nuclear power plants are operating at around 90%, 85% or more than that. And any plant that operates at 32%, you will just throw it out of the window. You don't want a plant like that. But Keynote's history is entirely different. And as a matter of fact, from that point of view, the energy that is generated or its capacity factor did not matter as much as the fact that Keynote provided us, Atomic Energy Commission, and all of us who were in some ways involved in it, the experience to run a power plant. It provided us the know-how that is required to operate and maintain a power plant. It familiarized us with the terms which are used in nuclear power plant. And at the same time, although there was restrictions and embargoes, but IAEA, as Chairman PSU also mentioned, and then later on WANO, this provided us a lot of support. There were more than 100 missions that came from IAEA. Why? Only to make sure that this plant can be operated safely. We invited them. We never hid anything from anybody outside. We did not hide anything, any of our shortcomings, because if you hide your shortcomings, then you cannot cure them. So we are really grateful to them. And the people that came, they provided our people an opportunity to go to international meetings, to talk about Keynote, to have friends in different countries related to nuclear, which were a lot of help for us in the coming days. They provided a culture of exchange of information, which now is an important and integral part of operation of any nuclear power plant. And when the time came, it also told us that nuclear power plants once built will not operate like this forever. So Keynote at some time, or like 15, 20 years after its construction, people realize that some replacements will have to be made. Some refurbishments will have to be done. Some money will be spent on it. So there was a project which was called TOP, which is basically BMR project. And then at the same time, we also, Keynote told us that the safety consideration, they keep changing with time, they keep improving. And the older plants sometimes cannot come up to the standards which are set by the new safety regulations. And for that matter, as a matter of fact, when Keynote completed its 30 years, it was shut down for 2 years. And I think around 23 safety improvements were made. So as a matter of fact, Keynote told us how a nuclear power plant operates, how a nuclear plant behaves, what steps have to be taken. And I'm saying this thing because all these steps will also have to be taken in Chashma. There you will be requiring BMR after 20 years, 30 years, and you will ultimately shall be requiring at some point in time certain safety upgrades. So that is how Keynote was, and that is how the Keynote has contributed. And I'm not talking about a number of other things. Barsa will talk, and all the know-how that was developed in terms of fabrication, in terms of spare parts, in terms of manufacturing, in terms of operating of machines. And then at that time when Keynote was built, Pakistan wanted another 900 megawatt at Chashma. And there were a lot of people who were trained for that. And Pakistan also sent out quotations, tenders to different countries in different European countries. But none of them responded because of the instructions that were imposed in Pakistan. And therefore, we ultimately, as Chairman PSU also said, waited till China was ready to give its first power plant. The plant C1 was based on Jinshan power plant, which Chinese started in 1978. They completed it in 1991, and by the time they built it, Pakistan had enough confidence. As a matter of fact, our chairman at the time, Dr. Shafaq, later Shafaq, he had enough confidence. He went there and signed an agreement for C1. And thus the construction of C1 started at Chashma, which was actually the harbinger of 3 more power plants which were built. And as you can see, the difference between Keynote and Chashma is almost like 20 years in the start of the work. But then later on, the difference starts decreasing, and now we have 4 nuclear power plants operating. And one of the things which I always say whenever I show this slide, and I show this slide every time I make any presentation on nuclear, that to have 4 nuclear power plants operating at one site, at one place, is the best vision, is the best scenery, is the best view, is the best dream come true that anyone who is involved in nuclear business in any country can ever hope to see. 4 nuclear power plants operating, functioning, and producing nuclear power at very good capacity factor. And it's not just a matter of arguments. If you have 4 nuclear power plants in one place, it gives you tremendous opportunity to indigenize, because then you have everything gets multiplied by 4, and therefore the parts that you build, the technology that you develop, the know-how that you build, all of that is multiplied by 4 times, and you can use it. If you import things, you have to pay 4 times the price. But if you do it yourself, then your saving is also 4 times. And then at that time, Pakistan also wanted a larger reactor, but it was not available. And ultimately, and this is the capacity factor that has already been talked about. We can see these green bars, which are more than any other kind of power plant. And when these larger plants, K2 and K3 will build, which are now completion. These are 1100 megawatts plant, and already there's a requirement for them. And even if if you build more power plants, and even they look, as I said before, they look too many. After a few years, they won't look too many. And as already been said, it has a very important effect that if you look at the CO2 which is emitted with the climate change, that is a very, for nuclear power plants, is very small. And now, before I go, these are the past of nuclear power. And since we are, the topic that has been assigned to me by Naqvi Saab is also prospects. So we'll also go to the prospects of nuclear power, maybe just 1 or 2 slides only. But before I do that, I think I must show as to why nuclear power has done so well in Pakistan. And as a matter of fact, I've written nuclear power here because we are talking nuclear power, but as a matter of fact, we can also say why Atomic Energy Commission has done so well why the atomic commission medical centers are doing well, or the agriculture center, or the fuel sector, or the R&D center, or anything. So I would say, if we were to list those things, effective leadership, this is one thing, proper planning and execution. Nothing can be got done unless you plan it properly, and then you execute it. And then, as has been demonstrated so well by Keynote, steadfastness and determination. Once you have made a plan, you stand by it, and you don't care कि आपके रास्ते में how many roadblocks come in your path. You have decided where to go, you know the destination, and you will go there. A merit-based system, which is an extremely important thing. If you cannot base your selection of personnel, if you cannot base your decisions on merit, then you can never make a good system, and you can never make good process. Then, of course, manpower development training, because you can have all the good wishes, but unless you have the people who can put your things into practice, nothing would work out. So a lot of emphasis has been on manpower training, paying attention to quality and safety. As I said, there kind of was shut down for 2 years just for that purpose. And then respecting the regulating authority. This is something which is not exactly built, sorry to say, into our culture, but in Atomic Commission, in operating nuclear power plants, we pay a lot of respect to what the regulator says, because we both have common interest, and the common interest is to ensure that the plants are safe and they can be operated safely. And of course, the last but not the least, this Pak-China relationship. Now, coming into future, I think at one time we future projects with climate change threats focuses on hydro and renewable. We know that a lot of hydro is being built in the country, which is very good, because hydro not only can provide you electricity, but also is a very effective tool for water management. But let there be no misunderstanding, because any hydro that is being built now cannot be as cheap as the electricity generated by Mangla or Tarbela, which were built many, many years ago. If their electricity cost is like 2 to 3 rupees, the hydro plant that are being built now will cost much more, definitely in double digits, and definitely much more. So because there will be a large capital investment that will have to be made in, and that will have to pay it back. Solar and hydro, of course, are solar and renewable. Sorry, I should have said solar and wind. Solar and wind, of course, are cheap, but then there are other problems. This is not what we are going to discuss nowadays. But of course, of these, there is no base load plant. There are times in the winter when the hydro on a particular day in January can go as low as to 10% of its design capacity. This has happened already. And normally you don't get more than 25 to 30% from anywhere. Thermal plants are perfect baseload plants, but they are not environment friendly. So nuclear is not only baseload, but also environment friendly. And as a matter of fact, I think as most of the audience know, that at one time Pakistan did say that we were going to build 8,800 megawatt of electricity by 2030. And already we have built more than 3,000, and maybe hopefully, inshallah, if things go well, by 2030, we have another 1,100. So a total of 4,500, almost half of what we initially thought. There could be more, but right now, I think if you're talking about the future prospects of nuclear, by 2030, we'll probably have 8,000 megawatts. But if you look at the fact that this 8,800 megawatt target was determined in 2005 midterm energy security plan, and at that time it was conceived and perceived that Pakistan would be producing 162,000 megawatts of energy, of power, installed power. It's not energy. 162,000 megawatt of installed capacity. And right now the projections are that maybe we'll be producing maybe 55,000 megawatts, less than one half. So naturally, if nuclear is also less than that, it's not really that bad if we get there, because the percentage of nuclear in the overall system would still be what it was when we had initially planned it. And similarly, if we look at some of the indicative generation capacity expansion plans, which actually has been produced by NTDC, although it has so far not been really approved because NAPRA has many problems with it. But if you look at it, of course, it uses the installed nuclear capacity of around 3,635 megawatt. And of course, there is some gas, but hydro is quite large, 23,000 megawatt, and almost, I think, maybe 40% of the total, which is not bad. It's very good to have hydro, but we must realize that right now hydro is 6,500 and nearly maybe 8% of the total. And still, when we have these load shedding issues, we say that hydro is not available. So depending on hydro and so much is another thing, but the nuclear ultimately should be able to make more contribution and should be there. And there is also a Vision 2050, which will also now should be modified, considering that the total energy requirement of Pakistan by the year 2050 is not what it was perceived at some time earlier. It might just be at best 150,000 megawatt. So the total energy Vision 2050 may have to be modified, revised, advised. But if you look at it up now, which is P7, which is the second K2 power plant, we are doing almost okay, because 2021, and we have two 300 megawatts and the two 1100 megawatts ready. So I think, thank you very much. This is all I had to say today, and then thanks.
Thank you, Dr. Pervez, for sharing your thoughts with us. Now, Mr. Pervez Butt, former chairman PAEC, will be talking about the role of nuclear power in Pakistan's energy mix. Mr. Pervez Butt has served as chairman PAEC from 2001 to 2006. He graduated in nuclear engineering from University of Toronto in 1965. After joining PAEC, he was involved in design phase of Pakistan's first commercial nuclear power plant in Karachi. He also worked in the design engineering at the GE Canada in Ontario, where he was involved in overall design of the nuclear power plant. His role remained instrumental in setting up the mechanical workshop, machine tools, manufacturing shop, and a welding facility that supported the plant operations as part of his responsibility to develop indigenous capability to ensure the grid operations of the nuclear power plant. As Director General of Nuclear Power Division at the PAEC and later its Member of Power, Mr. Butt oversaw the design phase and construction of the Chashma nuclear power plant. In recognition of his services to the nation, Mr. Butt was awarded Nishane-e-Imtiaz in 2015, Hilale-e-Imtiaz in 1999, and Sitara-e-Imtiaz in 1993 of the Government of Pakistan. You have the floor, sir.
Thank you. I would like to thank you, all the participants, and particularly Mr. Naqvi for inviting me to this webinar. Can you hear me now? Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. Okay. I did not prepare a presentation for this portion that I've been given, 10 minutes that I've been given, because I knew that the speakers before me would be saying everything that has to be said about the achievements of the Atomic Energy Commission, the capabilities of the Atomic Energy Commission, and the contribution it is making for the economic development of the country. So my speech today is not what was introduced by Ms. Tuba. My speech today is I am going to talk about the story of initiatives, challenges, and achievements. The Atomic Energy Commission, and CANUP in particular, is a story of initiatives, challenges, and achievements. If we go back to 1964, the country had very little industrial development. Everything was imported. Some industry was established. WAPDA was established at the same time as Atomic Energy Commission. But the Atomic Energy Commission had Dr. Usmani as its chairman, second chairman. And I think Dr. Usmani was a great person, great personality. I joined the Atomic Energy Commission because I heard him speak on the radio at that time read his articles written in the newspapers. And when I graduated in 1965, I decided I will not go anywhere but the Atomic Energy Commission. I was interviewed and I was selected. Now, Dr. Usmani had one faith, and that was that the Pakistani individuals, engineers, scientists could do whatever could be done by anybody else, provided they were given the opportunity. So he set upon himself establishing various institutions and organizations, of which we have just heard our speakers talk about. In 1965, I was at the University of Toronto when Dr. Usmani came there, and he said to me, do not think of doing your PhD. I want the Atomic Energy Commission to establish nuclear power plants, and we need engineers who are professionals, who can do things with their own hands and operate plants and build plants. And we do not need PhDs. We will need them for our research activities, but not for operating nuclear power plants. At that time, he also signed the contract with the Canadians for the Karachi nuclear power plant. And I was at that time working in NRX, and I was then posted in CG Peterborough, Canadian General Electric Peterborough. The mention of that was made by Dr. Ansar. I was there practically myself, and we were 10 people who had been selected, 5 from East Pakistan and 5 from West Pakistan. And similarly, an operating team was made of about 20 engineers and scientists. Half of them, again, more than half, were from West Pakistan and the rest from East Pakistan. I stayed in Canadian General Electric for something like 6 years. And the 5 of us at Canadian General Electric we actually took part in the design of the various parts and components of the nuclear power plant. So that was the experience that the 5 of us, the 10 of us, including the East Pakistani, had. We worked in the design office as design engineers. Our team was led by Dr. Hasnan, and the team of the operating engineers was led by Mr. Zadi. And when we came back, we participated in the construction of the Karachi nuclear power plant. And I am pleased to inform you that in the construction of the Karachi nuclear power plants, the maximum number of Canadians was 70. The average number of Canadians through the construction period was 15 to 20, 30, 50. And after the plant became operational in 1965, they left after 1 year. And during the commissioning, some of us were responsible for the commissioning and installation of the various equipments of the nuclear power plant, which was then under construction. I will give my example. The North fueling machine team was led by a Canadian, and the South fueling machine team of installation and commissioning was led by me. And we were in competition. And my Pakistani engineers and technicians who worked with me would sneak in the night and see what they had achieved, and they would leave after some time after doing more than what the Canadians had done. And this is just to show that we can do whatever the Canadians can do. And then fast forward to 1974, when the embargoes were applied. And it is because of the experience of the Pakistani engineers and technicians in operating the nuclear power plant, we could continue to operate it. We continue to supply and manufacture and supply equipment, for the safe and reliable operation of the nuclear power plant. All this we did because we were trained by Dr. Usmani and our Mr. Munir Ahmed Khan to take initiatives, to do things for the first time, to not to that. And then as has been said by me in many of my presentations, and as has been highlighted by Ansar Parvez, Dr. Ansar Parvez, that we recognized and we recognized the capabilities of an individual, and we developed them. And Dr. Usmani had the foresight, and Atomic Energy Commission established the training institutes, the educational institutes, and so on and so forth. And all that because we had developed that capability. And it is because of that capability that we saw that the Karachi nuclear power plant continued to operate for 50 long years. And the Karachi nuclear power plant not only operated for 50 long years, the Atomic Energy Commission developed its capabilities to manufacture equipment, not only for CANUP, but for Chashma 2, Chashma 1, Chashma 2, and so on, and also entered the export field. I signed the first contract with CERN to supply them equipment manufactured in our workshops in Pakistan, and that is exporting and earning foreign exchange. And that, I'm told, continues even now. So the Atomic Energy Commission is an example of the right kind of management, which will result in real, meaningful progress for the good of the country. And I think I must appreciate CISS holding this get together, because it has given us the opportunity to tell the world that we in Pakistan can do whatever we want to do if we are really serious about it. Our individuals, our engineers, technicians, and scientists are all very capable, and the Dr. Ansar Parvez pointed out to the picture showing the 4 nuclear power plants. In my presentation since the last so many years, I've been showing that picture and saying the same thing, that it is a perfect example of good planning and good decision making. And I must appreciate the present leadership of the Atomic Energy Commission. I must appreciate the engineers and scientists in the Atomic Energy Commission for having done such a magnificent job. And I'm so proud that I have been part of the history of the Atomic Energy Commission. I just want to say that thank you very much. Thank you.
Thank you, sir, for the interesting insights. The floor is now open for a Q&A session, which will be moderated by Ambassador Naqvi, Executive Director of CISS.
Thank you, Tuba. It's indeed a very interesting and gratifying session where we get to know from the people who were directly involved with the evolution and the development of Pakistan Atomic Energy Commission and the present leadership of the Commission. The facts and figures of this remarkable organization. I think this is a remarkable organization which has done exceedingly well. I will now, these are just some comments that came to my head right away, but I'll make some concluding remarks later as well. There are a set of questions that I will read out and pass it on to the panelists for their responses. The first question to address to the Chairman PAC is as follows. To what extent does PIC and the Energy Ministry cooperate in terms of pursuing a coordinated approach to address the climate change effects of reducing greenhouse gases, and not least through reducing the dependence on fossil fuels? This is from one of our young researchers. So, Naeem Saab, I pass on the question to you.
Thank you, sir. I think we are giving a lot of briefings to our Ministry of Energy, to the ministers and to the secretaries and the Planning Commission. And all the time we are telling them that this is a clean source of energy, which is much better, and we should replace it. And the pundits of the nuclear or the energy sector in the world, they say that we must have at least 20% of the nuclear energy in the energy mix. So this is very important. And in this, I think a very important factor is that this is a clean energy, because the greenhouse gases emission is very less. And there is definitely, we have to go to the Ministry of Energy for different discussions, and we highlight these things to them, and they understand this thing, that this is very important factor. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. The next question is addressed to Dr. Masood Iqbal from one of our researchers. Do you have data on the contribution of PAC to the overall GDP of Pakistan? That is its share in reducing overall unemployment rate, its share in agricultural output, and attracting FDI in advanced nuclear technologies, among other things. Well, if I may just quickly answer, the FDI need not be addressed, because that is subject to lots of political considerations, and we are not getting access to any advanced nuclear technology from any source except the Chinese. And we have made our claim for membership of the NSG and made an application. So this is one part of the question that I think we need not deal with. But the other parts, Dr. Masood, you can perhaps.
Thank you very much. We are contributing in GDP and other socio-economic development, but right now I don't have the data. Our agriculture, likely in cotton and wheat, we have developed a number of varieties, and which some of them are still in field. And like this, so Chairman Atomic Energy can give some more detail.
Ambassador Naqvi, if you allow me, let me say a couple of words.
Yes.
You see, we have the 4 agriculture centers, and Pakistan is an agriculture country, as we all know. And there are around 125 crops which we have given to the nation. And about 30%, the land of Pakistan is under cultivation by the seeds produced by PAC. So this is one factor. And then if you go for the techniques of insect control and other, it has revolutionized the cane sugar production in Sindh. And they're very happy, the growers there, that they have controlled it. And PAC, the NIA center, which is in Tandojam, they have contributed it. So if we see the cancer, I think if we go for the treatment, it's a very costly, But in the PAC hospitals, which are 18 and 19th is coming, and 20th will be groundbreaking, will be sometime in Muzaffarabad also somewhere this year. So we never go for the pocket of that patient. We see, and we never go for the state of that patient, at what grade it is. We just attend that patient. And I think this is we cannot. I think weigh all this in the amount of rupees. It's a great service Pakistan Atomic is doing. But as such, if you go for the data, we have our ASAD and other, but we can go for those data, we can generate data. Thank you very much.
Excuse me.
Thank you.
There is one more point which can be added to it, that Atomic Energy Commission is also operating these 4 nuclear power plants, what 1400 megawatt. They are producing energy which directly contribute, and more importantly, all the people, more than, I don't know, perhaps names have can tell better, maybe 7,000 or 8,000, whatever, in the power sector, all of them are funded through this program. There is no outside funding to support these people. So this is all within ourselves. So an employment to 8,000, 7,000 people plus production of this energy. That also contributes to the GDP.
Yes, thank you. Thank you very much.
Ambassador Naqvi, that is also, as Dr. Ansar has told, that for our future all plants, including Chashma 5, which is at the final stages of negotiation these days, we will not ask the government to give us the money. We'll manage ourselves. We'll reflow our generation money, generated money on that. And so it will be self-sustained, and that is a very big contribution. Dr. Saab has very rightfully said, the cheap energy and affordable energy we are giving to the industry of Pakistan. Thank you.
Thank you. And if I may follow up with a small question that comes to my mind, is that the power that is given to the national grid is in any case, it's not possible to compute exactly what percentage of the GDP this will be determining, so or will be constituting. So this is a national pool of power in which PIC power plants are contributing. If I like your comment on it.
I think very rightfully said, sir. Thank you.
Yeah, but I think I can give you just an idea of a number. Normally, in any country, the GDP growth rate and the electricity production growth rate are directly related. The electricity production growth rate is normally 1.3 times of the GDP. Like, you cannot have a GDP growth unless you have an electricity production growth. Unless, of course, you are a society which is completely service sector based, like some small countries in Europe. But if you are going to have an industry, you need electricity. And normally the relationship which holds for most of the European countries in America and China elsewhere is that if you are producing electricity consumption is increasing, if the electricity consumption is increasing, your GDP would increase by about 75.75% of it. In Pakistan, this might be slightly different because unfortunately our electricity consumption is increasing because of the use of air conditioners, which is not very productive in a number of ways. But there is always a relationship between GDP and the energy produced.
Actually, if I may mention here that many years ago, when I was in the Foreign Office, there was one diplomat from a Latin American country who came to me. I was dealing with his country to say that the government of Pakistan allows 5 or 7 air conditioners for my house for duty-free import. So this is not enough because I need 2 more or something like that. I said, look, if I had my way, I would only allow you 2 air conditioners. And if you want 5 or 7 or 10 or 15, then you pay for it in the open market. Why should we give you duty free? So, you know, you are quite right, Dr. Ansar, that these air conditioners and such wasteful utilization of electricity is actually not very helpful to the GDP and to the national development of Pakistan. So, yeah, these are the problems that we have, and we have to deal with it. But I think this was a very good question by one of our researchers about the contribution of PAEC, peaceful applications to the GDP in terms of value. The next question that I have here, because of this webinar format, we have to go through these this exercise that I deal with the questions. Otherwise, I would have let these younger people ask the questions directly. The next question is, does nuclear power generation have a future, or will new technologies of renewable energy be developed in the energy sector? And how can we ensure environmental and health safety of the new sources of energy? So I put it up. I think member science is very suitable. Yeah.
I think maybe I can try first.
All right, all right.
Dr. Ansar will be the right man for that, I think.
वो भी member science रहे. I mean, you have also been member science.
लेकिन देखिए, the fact of the matter is that I think the part of the question is, what is the future of nuclear? Right now, globally, the future of the nuclear does not appear very bright, because the Americans and the European, North Americans, I should say, and the Europeans, they've all, the people in those countries, they oppose nuclear, afraid of radiation, and there are various other things because of which nuclear power plants are not being built in Europe and also in America. And as a matter of fact, the generation 2 power plants which are operating in America and Europe these days, when after 15, 20, 30, 25 years, they shut down, there is no replacement plan. The countries which are now really building nuclear is Russia, China, India, also Pakistan, Korea, and a few other small countries like Bangladesh and Turkey or UAE who are building 1 or 2 plants at a time. But one of the things which these people will realize ultimately at some time, that if you have to cope with this climate change, then you have to have some energy production mechanism which does not yield carbon dioxide. So ultimately fossil fuels have to go out. And the only replacement which they are now thinking is solar and wind. Because mostly, and hydro of course is always limited, because if there is a certain potential, you can exploit it. Sometimes you cannot exploit it economically. So it's not like in Pakistan, maybe the maximum that you can is 50 to 60,000. And if you are going to ultimately have 150,000 or whatever, and world over things are the same, you cannot really rely on that for your long-term future also. So nuclear will ultimately have to play a role. Right now, this future doesn't look very bright, because these countries are not building nuclear power plant. But one thing is very obvious, that wind and solar, no matter how cheap they are, but ultimately they cannot be the sole providers of electricity in a country. And as a matter of fact, Germany is one of the European countries who are putting a lot of emphasis. Or sometimes they say all our energy came from solar and wind. And only recently I've read an article which says that this policy it is grossly affecting the economy of Germany, and it's also adversely affecting their energy policy. And the reason they are surviving, the reason Germany can do that, say that I'm only on wind and solar, because their neighboring countries which are operating maybe nuclear, which are operating maybe some other base load plant, they buy electricity from them. And therefore they say, okay, we are all right. But ultimately a time will come when, if everyone has wind and solar operating in Europe, then there'll be no economic future for Europe. So ultimately, people will come to nuclear, I think, but it might take a few years. And that is why it is very important for a country like Pakistan. In Pakistan, we have no gas. In Pakistan, we have no oil. In Pakistan, we have coal, definitely, in Thar. Lekin although it might be affected by the environmental policies and by these climate change issues and other things, and it is not one of the best coal in the world, but still indigenous coal or its plant we should build. But the thing is that for Pakistan, the future will ultimately lie, as Chairman Naeem also said, in having a nuclear a part of your energy basket. अभी जैसे हमने कहा कि अगर nuclear अभी जो hydro है, they are like having almost 40% of total by 2030. Right now, hydro is only 16% of the total, I think 6 out of 40. And still we have problem because there is no hydro. If hydro is producing 40% of the total, then you are only relying on the fact that during the summer season, your load will decrease, and your load will decrease because your entire load mostly consists of air conditioners. If your load consists of industry, if the industries are operating, then industry will have a bigger load in the winter because they operate better during the cold times. So if you rely too much on hydro, if you rely too much on wind, rely too much on solar, then you may have problems in future. और तो कोई सवाल कैसा नहीं था?
I would like to add something over here today.
Yes,
at the
please,
moment.
please.
Hello?
Yes, please go ahead.
Yeah, can I add something to what Dr.
Yeah, please go ahead, please.
Right. I am for nuclear power, but then we must have a mix of nuclear and safe sources of energy. I would like to talk about wind, for example. We have a coast along our ocean in the country, which has a lot of wind, and it has a lot of potential of producing wind generated energy. And we must work on that. The Atomic Energy Commission has the ability, HMC3 workshop has the ability to manufacture most of the components of the windmill. And I think we should do that ourselves. And if we do that in Pakistan, we will not only generate manpower, we will generate electricity without consuming any kind of fuel. We must, when we talk about running out of coal, not having gas, we should also remember that we will not have enough uranium to meet all the demand for all the time for the country by nuclear power. Nuclear power is a must, we must work on it, but we must, in addition, our manufacturing capability should be used to set up nuclear windmills also. And and our workshops have the capability of manufacturing them. All we have to do is take the initiative that I talked of, that Dr. Usmani had in creating the Atomic Energy Commission.
Actually, so just 1 second. Actually, there is a very famous quotation: "Don't put all your eggs in the same basket," which means that do not rely on one particular source of energy to meet all your energy requirements. So energy के basket होनी चाहिए, इसमें nuclear भी हो, wind भी हो, solar भी हो, hydro भी हो, और दूसरे conventional भी हो. Each one of them with their own limitations and strengths. अगर आप एक को बाहर निकाल देंगे तो आपको उसका नुकसान होगा. If you rely totally on one, you will also be suffering.
बट साहब उसमें ये है कि PAC ने ऑलरेडी, आपको पता है कि HMC भी मिल गया इनको, और ये DGSPD ने टास्क भी किया पिछले दिनों. आई हैड अटेंडेड दैट मीटिंग कि जी आप देखें और वहाँ से जो विंड मिल हैं उनको स्टडी करें और ला के देखें डिज़ाइन उसका बाकी. सो ए पार्ट ऑफ द मेंबर इंजीनियरिंग सेटअप, आई मीन a couple of good guys, they are working on that.
Yeah, very good, mashallah.
Thank you.
Good. That is very good to hear. And I'm nearing the conclusion time. So one more question that I will put to the panel because it has been asked by one of our researchers, and then we will try to wrap up this very useful session. The question is, Pakistan plans to produce 40,000 megawatt of electricity through nuclear power by 2050. Will this milestone be achieved by indigenous efforts or through cooperation with China? Also, do you think Pakistan needs the cooperation of other countries in the civilian nuclear field? If yes, which countries are potentially the most suitable partners? So this is a question that I think is to the panel. So whoever wishes to.
But Chairman PC, is most competent to answer this question.
Thank you for interesting me, sir. But I think you will add definitely in that. Sir, I think this of 2050 and 40,000, as Dr. Ansar has very rightfully said, what was the estimations in 2005 when the energy the meeting took place, and that time we had certain 1,25,000 sometime, and we said by 2030 we'll be having around 8,800. But as you see, they didn't have that demand. The appetite is not there that much. I wish that the industry, as Dr. Sahab has said, the GDPs having the relationship with the energy production. So the GDP should increase of Pakistan, and definitely the demand will be met by other sources and by the nuclear as well. Now coming to second part of that indigenously or importing, of course, the big player with us is the strategic partner is China. So we have a lot of the contracts already with them. So one is this path. And you'll be very happy to know that we are working on INPP, indigenized nuclear power plants. Pervez Bhatt Sahab and Dr. Ansar, they are part of that team. And we all are sitting, and our teams, they are thinking which plants, what type of plants, and how we should move ahead. Definitely, with that knowledge we have of the site selection, the management, and the designing houses, manufacturing, and these all things, and fuel fabrication and all things, I think they will be able to achieve, and they will be able to reach somewhere positively. Of course, there will be, because no country makes everything by themselves. So we'll have to look for other countries for certain things, and China is there. But I wish that discrimination attitude of the world should stop, and they should treat us equally. And then ultimately the NSC and these all embargoes will be gone someday. So then I think we'll have the world open for us, and many countries will come up. But still, with the help of China and Pakistan effort and having the confidence in our own teams, I think the road to INPP, and more than that, I think we'll be able to reach to that destination. Thank you very much.
और चूंकि चेयरमैन पीएसी ने कहा था, तो एक मैं भी इसमें ऐड कर दूं. देखें, when you buy a nuclear power plant from a country, you are tied to that country for at least 80-90 years. That is 4-5 generations, starting from planning, design, construction, design life extensions. 70, 80, 70, 80, 90 years you have to remain tied together, and you should be working together in a number of ways. Otherwise, the consequences could be as they were for Keynote, which could not operate at full power because the vendor withdrew. And if, of course, you can go to any country if there's a possibility, and you can go to different countries, but to only get some technical assistance, to get only uranium, to get only fuel. But you cannot buy full nuclear power plants so easily, at least not in the foreseeable future.
Thank you.
You should, one vendor country, I think, is enough.
Yeah, thank you. I think, Tuba, are you going to say something? I think I'll now, well, you go ahead.
Yes, sir, it's time for you to give your concluding remarks.
Right. I had anticipated as much. Now, well, it has been a very worthwhile session, very useful. And I think the story of Pakistan Atomic Energy Commission and the development, particularly of its power generation sector, is one that is a very inspiring story, because it warms the heart of all Pakistanis who want to see their country move forward on the path of development. I think this is in fact the most impressive and most apparent area of PAC work, which has in fact contributed greatly to the country's progress in the economic field. there are other areas in agriculture and medicine also. I think these are areas that have to be made public, because there are like I was once saying to some people that there is talk of one particular cancer hospital, but the PAEC runs 18 such hospitals which use nuclear medicine for diagnostics as well as for treatment. And this is a story that should come out. So in the power generation field, I think I, as a student, remember when I was in my sort of BA or around that time, that one I had read about the Kanu power plant, and before that Par 1 and Par 2. And these things were common knowledge. The details used to come out in the newspapers. I remember reading them in Dawn in Karachi. So we have to now work in projecting and bringing attention to what we have achieved in this field. And I think what Parvez Bhatt Sahab said, for example, of the early years is indeed very, very inspiring, because they began with some ambition, with some motivation, which resulted in such remarkable achievements. So at this time, when there is the decommissioning of Kanu that has taken place, which has been an icon of our nuclear development, this is a good time to sit and think about these things and talk about them. So I am so glad that all of you gentlemen found the time to join us and to participate in this webinar, which I think is extremely edifying for the younger generation, who have to know all this and who have to feel happy and proud about it. So thank you very much indeed.
Can I say something? I'm sorry for interjecting at this time.
Go ahead, go ahead.
I have a suggestion to make, and I would like to make this to everyone. We should shut down the Karachi nuclear power plant, and once it has been cleared of all radioactive material, radioactivity, we should open it to the public as a monument.
Museum.
As a monument. Please let me complete what I am saying. So that the public can visit it. And at its door, in the entrance of the Karachi nuclear power plant, there should be a picture of Dr. I.H. Usmani. He is the founder of what the Atomic Energy Commission is now. He set the foundation for what the Atomic Energy Commission is now. And it should say that the Karachi nuclear power plant was the first nuclear power plant in Pakistan, in the Muslim community. It continued to operate for 50 years, and it continued to operate in spite of embargoes in 1974, so that students of engineering, public at large, can visit it as a monument and be inspired by the achievement of the Atomic Energy Commission. This should be a monument which should be like we visit Badshai Mosque, for example. It should be a place where we should be able to bring people of Pakistan and inspire them with the example of Karachi nuclear. It's a perfect example. It's a perfect example of a story of success. And we should make it as much public as possible. Thank you very much. I'm so sorry. I thought of this. I had written it down that I will talk about it, but I interjected and I requested this time. Thank you very much, Professor.
Thank you. Thank you, Bhatt Sahab. Thank you very much. And I think that's a very good suggestion that should be taken note of by the authorities and by the PAEC.
It will be well noted. It is noted and it will be executed, inshallah.
Thank you.
Inshallah. Very good. So at this very happy note and a very nostalgic note of the story of Kanu, I would like to conclude this session and thank you all gentlemen for participating in this particular webinar.
Thank
To
you.
all of you.
Okay. This concludes today's webinar session. I thank the chief guest, the worthy speakers, and the participants for their valuable insights and contribution, which made this webinar a success. Thank you.
Thank you.